In this video, we're going to look at using a bar graph. Yesterday we looked at pie charts. With pie charts, you're looking at developing a portion of the whole. So for example, if you have a group of data that adds up to 100%, it's great to use a pie chart because you can see what portion each group sets up of that whole. Now, the bar graph, on the other hand, is used to compare similar sets of data. So you can do this across time periods, you can do this across sets of data, as long as you have something where you're looking at each individual piece of data is similar in the sense that it's, for example, like this GDP, it's similar in that it's the year. Down there on the testing, it's similar in that we're looking at the same test, but we're looking at it over different years. So we've got that similar set of data. Now, some best practices: avoid 3D graphs, they can skew the visuals. Establish a consistent vertical high and low. When we do the test scores, what I'll do is I'll set a high at 30 and then I'll set a low at 10, and that also allows it to be consistent across the board. We want to use color variations. The more data we add into this, the more colors we want to use. Now, we can use each piece of data as an individual color, or we can actually group among colors. So for example, we could group all of the English as one color, all of the math as another, all the reading or the science, to make it a little easier to view. So here's how we're going to do this. The first thing we want to do is highlight the range. So we're going to highlight this range here. And we're going to go to this insert menu. We're going to use 2D column. So we'll bring this up. It's a little bigger. So now once we have this in, there's a couple things we want to do. Number one, we're going to come up here and we're going to rename this, and we're going to call this GDP per capita. Per capita means per individual. And then we're going to say in current US dollars. So in other words, this is not adjusted for inflation. This is just current US dollars. Now you'll see there's a consistent, this is 140,000, this is 20,000, that works. And then we go across here and you can see when you look at this where each one is at. Now, one of the things that I always do, I want to go in here and I want to add my data labels. Now, I can choose, like I said, different versions on the data labels. Typically, I almost always go with sitting like this. One of the things you'll notice right away, I want to make this a little wider to kind of spread those out a little more. The other thing I always want to do is I want to go in here, I want to make these bold so they stand out a little more. Same thing with the countries down here. Now what I could do obviously is I could go in here and change these colors. One of the things you'll notice about here is you can go up here, you can change the colors in general, or you can change them individually. Like for example, if I wanted to make sure that the United States stood out, I could go in here to shape fill and change it. So when you're looking at this and you see these numbers, so living in Luxembourg, the average person is $116,000 a year, whereas in the United States it's $54,629 a year. So you can see these differences. And so that's what makes this bar chart helpful, is you're able to look at this visually and instantly get an idea of feedback. Like these three countries right here are very similar: Macau, Norway, and Canada. Now, what's interesting though is you can look at these three and say these are similar, but you can also go in geographically and look at how they're different. So we can start to build questions off of this. It's also interesting when you look at this right here, you'll notice the lowest of these countries is actually the United States. Now, this can be misleading though, and this is a question you would want to work on because of the fact that we're talking about 300 million people, 300 million plus people living in the United States, obviously makes this per capita go down, whereas Luxembourg is a much smaller country with a much smaller population. So in addition to doing this, one of the ideas would be to actually pull in and look at not just per capita, but look at overall GDP and see the differences. So you can start to develop some thinking skills and problem solving with students by starting with one graph and then building into another. Now on this bottom one, looking at the scaled scores down here, what we can do is we're going to go in and we're going to delete out versus tested scaled score. And then we're going to go across. We're going to rename this so ACT test. Then we're going to highlight the range again. Go to insert. Now you'll notice we can go this way or we can go this way. On this one we'll go this way. So we'll go pull this down. a little bit further. Now you'll notice one of the reasons you'll see this starts at a 16 and goes to a 20.5. I'm actually going to double click on this, and I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to say 30. Well, actually, for the minimum, I'm going to say 10. For the maximum, we're going to go with 30. And I hit enter, and then I can close this. So when you're looking at this, you can see the scale goes down here by 5s. I actually want to change that and go by 3s. So you can see our scores. Now, what I want to do next is I want to go in here and single click, and what I'm going to do is change the science to a different color. So we go to format, and we're going to make these red. So we'll leave the reading the blue. We can go to math, and we can make the math. We'll make these, this color should be orange. Looks more like some sort of yellow. And then with the English, make them green. So in this sense, I've got 4 different colors. I've got 4 years of each. Now, one of the things about this when we look right here that I like is when I add my data labels again. So here we have our data labels. We don't have to have a legend because you'll notice it's 2016 through 2013. So all of this is right here. So we've got this. Now what's cool about this, so we can look at this and we can look at the science and see where we're at. We can look at the reading and notice that here we had a drop, here we had a drop, here we had a drop. So if we come over here to the filter, this is where it gets really, really helpful. We can do a couple of things here. So when we go into the filter, we could look at just English and hit apply. We could also go into it and actually look at just 2013. So this is one of my favorite things about using it this way is that I can actually go in here. You'll see now this is just for 1 year. Is I can use these filters and I can go in here and set this to see whatever I want. So I can see the whole, or I can use the filter and then break it down and see just a piece. So if all I wanted to do was look at English, then I can break it down and look a little more closely at what the English looks like. Now the awesome thing here is that these filters, if I copy this and paste it into PowerPoint, the filters remain, so I can use these anywhere I want. But this is a really, really good thing. If I have all of this done, then I can start to ask questions and have students go into the filters and change filters on the graph to be able to answer the questions in a little more detail than I want. So you've seen pie charts, and these are bar charts. Making sure you know the difference, of course, when you're looking, use bar charts when you're looking at sets of data like over time, like down here, or if you're looking at the change from one point to the next or from a different country in this example, looking at similar data. And so really important, like we said, make sure we put our data labels up, avoid the 3D graphs, and we establish a consistent high and low so that everything looks the way we want it to look.